All right, joining me now, thrilled as always to be joined. I know this guy a long time, former Kings player, legend, and now Kings assistant coach, Bobby Jackson. Bobby, thanks so much for taking the time. I wish we were doing this in person as we normally do, but this is a little different. Welcome to my home.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I've been doing some Zoom classes of my own, so I've grown accustomed to the Zoom network.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to learn on my end. That was for sure. I want to get to some of the stuff we were going to talk about here in a minute. The reason I was having you on, but because this is so different and it's kind of shocked not only the world, but especially the sporting world. But you're in a unique case where you've been away from the people you work with and from the basketball world for such a long time, and now you're slowly taking steps in entering the building again and getting around some of the players again. What's the whole experience been like for you?
Uh, for 2 months, it's been real because when you get isolated and you can't go nowhere, and I think the biggest thing is just being around family and keeping your social distancing and not trying to get out too much. I'm starting to get out just a little bit more, gradually but slowly. Um, I think it was a tough situation for a lot of people to get accustomed to and to get a hold of. So I know a lot of people, it was stressful, had anxiety because of being in the house. Most people are used to being on the go, having something to do, but you had to sit your butt still and wait for the worst to get over with. But it's also allowed me to grow and get close to my kids and spend more time with them and, just sit down and not do anything and just chill. So I think that's been the great thing about it. Getting back into the flow of things on the work side has been phenomenal when you have to sit down for 2 months and miss basketball. But these last couple of weeks have been amazing. Been at the arena for at least 2 or 3 hours a day, and that's the gist of my day. Is just allowing myself just to be around the few guys that are in town.
Yeah, and you were one of the first guys I thought about when this happened because not from the basketball standpoint, but even as just a family man, you're blessed to have a full house of family. But I guess that can also be a curse when you got to try to keep them all entertained and find something to do when you can't really go out.
No, I mean the good thing about it, social media and Netflix and TikTok, kind of kind of takes a lot of that pressure off of me. The girls have been amazing with keeping themselves busy. Every now and then they may get bored, but they've done a good job of entertaining themselves. And my kids are getting older now. My youngest is 11. She may be the one that can't really sit still and always wanting to do something. But the older kids, they're kind of cool, which is a blessing for me. But it's been great, man, just to be at home and see them and not be on the go as much, but also just continue to build that relationship with them that you miss once the season is in full effect.
That's great. And because you're in this blessed situation you are to be around this new Kings team and to see where you guys still have 20 games remaining, it sounds as if, things are progressing and trending in the right way and looks like there could be a finish to this season. What is it like on your end coming into the gym every day, working individually with some of these guys? And I imagine you almost have at least half the team still in town now at this point.
I don't know how many guys are in town, but I think there is a few that's still here. And I think majority, I think it's half and half, to be honest with you. But it's great just to be back in the atmosphere and be around guys. Just for them to come in for voluntary workouts, nothing structured, nothing organized. Just allowing them to be able to do whatever they want to do and being able to, get on the floor and do the things that you love doing. And when you kind of take it for granted when you don't have something for 2 months. So just to get back into the flow of things and the feel of things has been probably the most gratifying for the girls. I mean, for just the guys being able to just come in and just be a part of basketball again.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Do you get the sense that not only with you and the staff, but there's that itch, there's that desire to hey, we still want to play, we still have these 20 games left, there's that desire to get back?
Oh, without a doubt. I think that's the one thing when you have basketball players and guys that's committed to one common goal of winning and making it to the playoffs. I think that's the most important thing, and you rarely find guys that say, "Yeah, nah, man, I ain't trying to play." I think they're optimistic about just being safe, but trust me, they definitely want to get out and they want to play. And I know the NBA is going to do a phenomenal job of putting us in a great situation to thrive, and they will probably weigh every scenario over before they make a decision. So I think the guys are super excited about getting the season started again. And again, we don't know what the details are, how many games we're going to have left, and what's the landscape of what's going to make up. But, when that time comes, I know we'll be ready to jump into the heat of things when they do make that decision.
Yeah, I hope that comes soon, and hopefully everyone's safe. Obviously, the main reason I wanted to have you on, I mean, we were both kind of shocked yesterday. We both share a mutual friend in Marty McNeal, and we lost him yesterday. And the former longtime beat writer of the Sacramento Bee, and as close as I was to him, I know he thought the world of you, and in covering you not only as a player and even as a coach at times. There were two guys that stuck out in my mind in my time around the team that he would just talk the most mess to and have the best interactions with, and it was you and it was Mike Bibby. And to bring you on to help reminisce about Marty just made the most sense in the world to me. And I guess in the simple terms is just when you think of Marty and what the world lost, just what comes to mind.
Bobby Lee. That's when I think about Marty. Anytime he walked in the gym, he always said my first name and my middle name. But probably one of the most generous but honest guys in the sporting world, and a true friend, a guy that you could sit down and talk to, and didn't really have, the one thing I respect about Marty is, he had the courage. If he wrote something about you, he'll tell you why he wrote it. Or he didn't have an issue with coming up to you and asking you, hey, do you mind if I write this before I wrote it? And so I think that's the one thing I respected about him, is his willingness to really get to know the athlete, not just write anything, but, take the time out to really dive in our lives and understand what we was going through instead of just writing whatever came to his mind and the first thing that he thought of. So, friend, I think me, Webb, Mike, we tremendously, loved the guy and we supported him. And I was actually talking to Mike today, and we was talking about Marty and, how life throws you curves and how to appreciate life moving forward. And he's definitely going to be missed and loved because he was such a great guy and a guy that stood for so many things, and he lived his life to the fullest. And my condolences go out to him and his family first and foremost, because I know what it feels like to lose a loved one, and I never want to see anybody go through that. So I think it's just the respect of what he brought to the game of basketball and to the media world, I think is always going to be remembered.
I think it doesn't matter what industry you work in. Could be sports, could be business, could be media. For me, he was kind of that guy. He kind of first Kings game I ever covered as a media member. He made sure to show me, what to do, what not to do, kind of show me the ropes, and that never changed. And to me, I think you can relate to this as being both a young player in the league and even an older player in the league. Veterans end up doing that for some of the young guys if they're willing to learn, and that was just Marty, right?
Yeah, again, I think so many people don't know how he applied his life and encouraged other individuals. And I think that's the special thing about Marty. He wasn't willing. He was willing to step outside his comfort zone to help any and everybody out. And it just didn't stop inside the arena, outside the arena, in his home, at a game. Like his generosity to get to know you, but also show you the ropes and be a friend, but also be intelligent, where he wants to see you involved as an individual. That's just how he was, and that's just what he rolled with. And I think such a great attribute to have to pass on, but also to be able to impact people's lives on so many different levels, I think was really one of his strong suits.
And maybe it's a throwback. I mean, you don't see this too often in media these days, but he always knew where you stood. I mean, he was going to let you know one way or the other, and usually to your face, which was great. And I always got a kick out of that and some of the trash talk sessions between you guys. I mean, could he have held his own as a player when it come to trash talk?
Without a doubt. Now, as far as the game, probably not.
Probably not. No, I got you.
but trash talking, yeah, he can talk trash with the best of them. And coming from New York, you gotta be able to have the gift of the gab to be able to talk like that. And I thought like there wasn't anything that he wasn't afraid of. He didn't back down from the challenges that we always had when it came to talking trash. But it was a respectful trash talking, and it was jovial, because you meet somebody and you understand what they're going through, and most people get afraid. Most media people get afraid to have that banter back and forth with athletes, but he wasn't. And I think that's the one thing that respect me about him, because he was a guy that, regardless of who you was, he was going to give you the real, and he didn't really care if you liked it or you didn't like it. But at the end of the day, his job was to be honest and upfront, but also real and candid with you.
Yeah, it's almost, I feel kind of sad that players today, especially these Kings players, didn't get a chance to see Marty. Get a chance to be around a guy like that, because he would have made things a little bit different.
Yeah, he would have. And I think those guys come around. He may not have the star-studded, have his own show and career and highly publicized, but I think that's the one thing that's missing. Like, most media people are afraid to say and speak their minds in front of athletes, and he wasn't. And so hopefully it gets back to that, and just having candid, open conversations with an individual. Like, man, how do you think you played tonight? Yeah, I'll tell you play like shit.
Yeah, right.
So, Bobby Lee, you couldn't make a shot. What was wrong with you tonight? So, what was going on in their head tonight? So most guys get offended now when you have that type of conversation with a reporter, I think. But with me and him, it was just open. It was candid. I knew where he was coming from. I knew his angles. But I think the friendship allowed us to veer into that lane and to have an open conversation with him, man. And it's rare that you find somebody in the media where that you do that with, and he was just one of those rare guys. I didn't do it with a lot of other medias, and he was probably about the only one that I had that type of relationship with.
I don't know, and I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. I don't know if there's a singular moment that you remember. You mentioned him, how he called you by name every time. But one of the things for me I always got a kick out of is the locker room is considered that athlete sanctuary. And if he came in there, it might as well have been his home too. He's raiding the food in the fridge, and the gum, all the gum that was on the table. I mean, that might as well have been his too. And I always got a kick out of that.
He kind of acted like he was an athlete. He was an old ass athlete. And he didn't care. Like, he wanted water. He was gum. He would sit down. I'm like, hey, nobody asked you to sit down, bro. Why are you sitting down? Most of you guys are standing up. He want to sit his ass down. So it was just the familiarity and the comfortability that he had with the athletes. And again, he had the I don't give a
Yeah.
mentality.
Right.
So, but he had those relationships where he could do that, and we respected him, and we knew where he was coming from. And again, like you said, once he walked in the locker room, you knew who was in the locker room. Now you walk in the locker room, like you guys are quiet, they're scared, they don't want to say shit. But not Marty. He's letting you know when he's in the building. So,
Yeah. You'd hear him
uh,
before you see him for sure.
yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt, you definitely hear him uh, amongst anybody. Again, like I said, like he was a rare guy that stepped outside of the zone of media, and it showed you and allowed you to see why he was truly special in his craft.
You're right, man. A man that would not waste a chair. You guys would be in the shower, and this chair would be empty, and he's going to wait for you by sitting in your chair. That was I got a
Yeah,
kick out of that all the time. And you'd hear like DeMarcus come out of the locker room. He'd see he'd be like, "Get your ass out of the chair."
yeah, man. He's done that plenty of times, man.
That's
He's
great.
done that plenty of times, and like I said, it wasn't the first person that he's done that to. Like he felt like he was at home, and it was his home. When you cover a certain team and then you have respect, and again, like I said, I don't know any guys that didn't like him.
Right.
And that says a lot about your persona, your character, especially in a world where you can criticize athletes. Like most guys don't like media.
Right.
And so to love somebody and have a truly intimate friendship with, it spoke volumes about who he was and how he carried himself. But the willingness to get to know us as young men and athletes.
That's well said. I appreciate you sharing that. Before I get you out of here, I'd be remiss. I mean, I know The Last Dance has taken kind of the sports world by storm, and the stories of Michael Jordan, and you were lucky enough to compete against him on several occasions. And one of the things that stuck out to me is that you're a North Carolina kid, and it doesn't get much bigger than Michael Jordan in North Carolina. Were you able to see Last Dance like the rest of the world, and what were some of your lasting memories of not only Michael Jordan, but did that open your eyes at anything?
Oh, it definitely was a great documentary. And yes, me and my kids, we watched it from the first 2 episodes to the last 9 and 10. So documentary done very well. I would say it was probably better for them because they didn't get to see him play. And he's played this 30 years ago, and now you having your kids get to watch the greatest basketball player of all time, and they be like, yeah, they asking me questions like, why is he talking to me like that? I said, that's what sports are. That's how men talk to each other in the heat of the battle. But why they saying this? Why these shoes cost this much money? Like, so it's just being intrigued and being able to go through a part of history with your kids and them watching and having full-on dialogues, but also trying to break everything down for them. I think that was a cool thing for me. What I took out of it, like I grew up in North Carolina, so I'm a big Mike fan anyway. There's a lot of things that I can take out of it, but I can say there's the one thing you look at his competitive spirit. Winning three championships in a row, 2 consecutive years, doing that twice. So I think that's probably the biggest accomplishment for me. I already knew he was the greatest player for me in my eyes. He's the greatest player in the world. But, having the will to win 6 championships without losing any, it tells you what type of competitive guy he was, and the will to win games was far superior than any other athlete that he played against or any other athlete in the past and in the future.
Yeah, and I got to think for you, what was it like when you were competing against him? I know I went back and looked it up. You had a 2-2 record against him. You got him in games where he was longer in the tooth. But I got to imagine when you were going up against him, that those games carried, even as a competitor, carried a little bit more weight than the average game that you would go up against anyone else?
I mean, my very first game, to be honest with you, man, I was so starstruck. I'm not even gonna lie. I was a rookie in Denver, and I was actually having a really good year. I was like averaging about 15 points, about 5 rebounds, about 4 or 5 assists. And man, I can remember like it was yesterday. You know, they come into town, they the hottest thing. This 97, 98, my rookie year, and after the game, he was like, "What was up with you tonight, BJ?" I said, "Man, I'm not even gonna lie. I was starstruck, bro. I was in awe of just watching you play. You know, I'm from North Carolina. I grew up watching you. I'm a big Carolina guy." He's like, "Man, that's all good and all, man, but you got to put that behind you. Once you step on this floor, it ain't no limelight. It's kill or be killed." So I always remember that conversation. He's like, "We came in this game planning for you. If we took you out of the game, we knew we was gonna win the game, but we made a concerted effort to make sure we took you out of the game." And they took me out of the game. I think I had like 3 or 4 points.
Wow.
So, but the conversation after the game was probably the most, at that time, probably the most inspirational talks that I had, because from that point on, I didn't go into the game, like I was ready for battle. So that's my Michael Jordan story. It's just the ability to learn my rookie year, not to go in ooh and ah and being all of the athlete that you're on the floor with.
That's tremendous. And when you were there in the games where he was in the latter stages of his career, at least with the Wizards, I think people look at that on that era a little bit too critically. I mean, he was still a hell of a player. I mean, I was looking at numbers he was able to put up. He was still playing almost every game, and the minutes were high, and he was still putting up numbers. He may not have been Bulls Jordan, but he was still a hell of a player.
And that's amazing, man. Like he sit out a year or two before he went to Washington, because remember, he went into ownership.
Right.
So like it tells you the type of athlete he was. When he came back, he wasn't in the best of shape. So I thought it took him a while to get back to where he was at. He had some injuries later down the road, but he still was productive for at least 2 years. And then you think about the years that he took off from basketball. He retired 2 times, so it was amazing just to be on the floor with him. Even in the Washington days where he wasn't the same guy, but he still can get to his spots, and you weren't blocking his shot. And he shot the ball well as anybody in the league from mid-range. So his post work, his footwork was unbelievable. Fading away a contested 20-foot, 17 and 20-foot jumper, like that's hard. Like you can tell he put hours and hours of work in perfecting that shot, and the footwork that came with it was unbelievable. And again, like he was one of those guys that mastered every aspect of the game when he was on the floor.
Yeah. And lastly, to that point, I also think he helped make golf cool, because so many athletes started jumping on golf once they saw that Michael thought golf was cool.
Again, I think that's something that, Trent said.
Yeah.
Like he made it cool for black athletes to say, you know what, golf is cool. It's not a white man's sport. It's everybody's sport. And I think that's the one thing that for me, I went to Trent Tucker's golf tournament, and Michael Jordan was there. That was the very first tournament I went to in Minnesota. And so from that point on, I was addicted to golf. Never really paid no attention, but when I went to that golf tournament in Minnesota, Trent Tucker's golf tournament, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Charles Oakley, Charles Barkley, they all was there. I got hooked from that point on.
Wow, that's incredible. A guy that you saw idolizing in North Carolina, and he can open your eyes to another game as well. That's incredible.
Yeah, honestly, my high school coach tried to open my eyes to it, because he was a high school golf coach. He was like, "Yo, you need to play golf." I was like, "Man, I'm from the hood, bro. Hey, black kids don't play no golf, man. Come on, bro." I wish that he'd be like, listen, when you get older, you're going to wish that you would have played golf. I mean, but at 15, 16 years old, like, you ain't thinking about playing no golf. Only thing I was thinking about playing was basketball. Now every time I go home, I see him, I'm like, man, I wish I would have took this. I wish I would have took this sport up in high school. I would probably be a scratch golfer right now if I would have took it up in high school. But
you're almost there now. I mean, you,
I got a little ways to go. I'm still working on the game.
That's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining me on this. I appreciate you going down memory lane with me and reflecting not only on our dear friend Marty, but also some of the moments you had against Michael. I know those got to be, boring to tell maybe for you, but for guys like me, we get a kick out of it.
Nah, it's been great, man. I appreciate it. The love has been real, but it's been memorable with Marty and having a conversation with him and just thinking about how he approached it and his mindset. And when a guy has impacted your life and so many other people's lives, you just want to make sure you say the right thing for him, but also send him away on the right note. And again, my condolences go out to his wife and his kids and his family because he was truly a special gem.
Absolutely right. Those are great words, wise words. And again, thank you so much for sharing. I hope next time we're doing this, it's in person, either basketball setting or even if it's the golf course, I'd be all for it.
Yep, same here, man.
Appreciate you, sir. I'll be seeing you soon. Thanks again.
All right, sir.